Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to a new episode. Today's episode is about General Z. Let me tell you that opinions are divided on its definition. When does it start, and when does it end? However, in general, it's agreed on that this generation was born between 1997 and 2012, meaning that Gen Z are between the ages of 11 and 26. That's in 2023, in case you watch this episode in 2030. Say hi to me while you're there. ABO Mead, I went to say hi, but you weren't there. Don't say that. There's one important difference from this generation to previous ones. Besides the fact that they represent quarter of the current population, this generation never knew the world without internet. They were born into it. You might think it's not a big deal. Is it not, ABO Mead? Nope. It's a very big deal. It's not just about sitting on your phone all day. This generation doesn't know a lot, my friend. They don't know what it means to be up all night on Sunday hoping that El Alam Yogani program would play a Backstreet Boys song. They don't know how to be on time at 5:15 to see Alam Sim Sim after the French broadcast. They don't know life without Google. That's right. If you're Gen Z, then Google is older than you. Next time you open it, ask for permission. Say, look this up, please. Please, sir. Call it sir as well. Gen Z is the generation of multiple choices in everything. Everything including friendships. Before Gen Z, friends were limited to certain roles. The one sitting next to you in class, your neighbor, or the cousin your age. Whether you like them or not, that's not society's problem. These are the options. However, Gen Z has an infinite amount of friendship choices. They follow whoever, follow back whoever, or block whoever. They can stalk quietly without anyone bothering them. Kids play PUBG in America from their rooms in Helwan. In short, the difference between Gen Z and any other generation is that they were born into a highly accessible world. And also their parents are always watching them to protect them from the world that became a tiny village. What do you mean, tiny village? It's a wallet. You might think that Gen Z is lucky, my friend, because they didn't work as hard as other generations. The generation of tell me Google, show me YouTube, spoil me Facebook, make me famous Instagram. They didn't work hard like us. Stop. ABO Mead. You're born in 1994. You know about that? I'm General Y. I was 2 steps closer to Z, but let me tell you that you're right. This generation didn't work as hard as others. But, does that make them lucky? That's the point we need to discuss. But before that, I'll exit dramatically, and come back to tell you everything. Or not. Actually, my friend, studies have shown that this generation isn't as lucky as you think. But, it's actually the generation that struggles with loneliness the most. Really? So in the age of the internet, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, these kids are lonely? What about our grandparents who wrote love poems for wooden mashrabias? He loved her just by catching a glimpse of her shadow. You think those weren't lonely? This generation is more socially isolated than other generations at that age. Besides, some studies say that those who went to college from this generation, or even graduated and started jobs, are not ready for work, or to deal with their coworkers or work under pressure. And generally, this generation was described as snowflakes. To express fragility and the inability to face real life. The American psychologist and writer Jonathan Haidt described Gen Z as a generation that has abnormal high rates of anxiety, depression, self-harm, and suicide. He described the state that Gen Z is going through in America as a national crisis. However, the question is Gen Z like that because it's irresponsible, or spoiled as rumored? The truth is that there are important reasons behind that. To understand those, allow me to dramatically exit and come back. In 1969, in his book Between Parent and Teenager, the American psychologist Chaim Ganot used for the term helicopter parent for the first time. He used this term to describe the type of parents who monitor everything their kids do. They restrict all their actions and circulate around them all time like a helicopter. At that time, Chaim was describing some parents and warning against the dangers of this type of parenting for some. However, over time, this term was used in a wider range, until it was added to English dictionaries and became an English term. A term that is linguistically agreed on, and refers to the parents who try to protect and control their kids too much by interfering in every detail of their lives, especially in education. Initially, the term was used to describe only some parents from older generations, especially those born between the 40s and 60s. They were parents who were overprotective of their kids and interfered in everything. However, with time, Psychologists discovered that this phenomenon is increasing, not decreasing. And it kept growing and passed down from one generation to the other, up until the term was added to the dictionaries. In the years prior, the term was at the peak of its usage among psychologists. At the time, a large part of Gen X was starting to give birth and parent. Don't want to interrupt, but what's Gen X? Gen X is the generation that was born in mid-60s to mid-80s. What we care about with Gen X is that it's the generation that was most described as helicopter parents. And that it's the generation of General Z's parents, in addition to some millennials who now have the youngest children of General Z. These parent generations developed an urge to overprotect their children. That's for many reasons. For example, some economical reasons. Some economical experts say that the difference between social classes gives parents a stronger desire to protect their children. That is apparent in countries that have large gaps between social classes, especially when it comes to education, and parents interfering in their kids' education too much. Besides the mental pressure put on kids to achieve things beyond their limits, and forcing them to take part in activities that exceed their potential. You find kids working on full time, my friend. The kid wakes up, no time to say good morning, his mom grabs him, throws him at school till the afternoon. His day is just starting. He needs to go home, take a 30-minute nap, but then his mom grabs him, takes him to the club. She probably got him a winger's place on Team Flowers. Then, she takes him to a taekwondo, karate, kung fu, kickboxing, wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, gymnastics, and sumo practice. And he gets hit in them all, even gymnastics. Honestly, my friend, you feel like kids have a full-time job in the morning, then, part-time jobs later. After the kid is done with all of this and just wants to relax. Take a shower from all the sweat, fighting, and blood. His mom kicks him in the swimming pool where he starts drowning, and the trainer is yelling at him. It's too much. Too much. We have a lot of expectations from our kids. I'm drowning. Mom, show me 200 butterflies. Now, Mom. And when he's done, he has a piano lesson. He needs to learn music. Then, he goes to school the next day, and gets punished for not doing homework. When will he? There was an Olympic athlete and singer contest happening the day before. That generation gets stuck in a continuous competitive state. Between students and parents too. Whose son will get better grades? Who goes to an international school? And why does Nagwa's son call it a purse, but you call it a bag? Also, the age and number of kids play a factor in this. The controversial psychologist Jordan Peterson, this guy ruffles a lot of feathers, my friend. What does he do? He does this. Feathers. This guy says that one of the important reasons that made General Z's parents have this urge to overprotect them is that they aren't many. It's true. You'll find that your grandpa had 7 or 8 kids back then. Like he's Erling Haaland. How will him and your grandma gain possession of the game? You won't need a helicopter. You'll need an F-16 to watch them, protect them, study for them, monitor their teenage years, and keep up with it. But, now, it's probably you and a brother, or a sister. The attention is all on you. There's no one else. However, with the 7, 10, or 12 kids, they all raise each other. The old looks after the young. Also, the late age of marriage is an important reason. For example, imagine back then, a 17 or an 18-year-old mother. How will she watch and protect her child, if she herself is a child who needs protection? That's when, from this young mother, some neglect in parenting is expected to happen. And in Jordan Peterson's view, this neglect is a useful one. Meaning, you won't take care of your kid for some time. Not to ditch him, but to look away a bit. He'll do something wrong, and learn it. He'll learn from his mistakes. He'll fall, he'll get hurt. He'll understand mistakes. He'll know consequences. Of course, he's not saying that parents will neglect their kids. He's talking about healthy boundaries that parents should give to children. However, if the parents are in their 30s and above, and have a kid, or 2, then you're the one stage. All alone without backup. And the father is an older person, above 30, who has opinions and thoughts. He only has 1 or 2 kids. He read all the modern parenting books, have seen Kamel El Haddad, El Harsha El Sabah, and all women's rights movies. Then, he takes all that knowledge, and applies it on you. Poor little General Z. Someone might say, what's all that Jordan Peterson stuff? Overprotection is a good thing, Abo Mead. We must protect our children. Aren't they our kids? Aren't they? I'm dying to know your age. Because I have the stats for El Dahi viewers' ages. I know it well. Why are you acting? Of course, my friend, overprotection is important. However, some psychologists think that if it crossed a certain line, it could grow fangs to bite you. Bites you in your independence and self-confidence. Because there's a big difference between protecting loved ones from life dangers and not letting them know that dangers exist from the first place. Due to my fear, I isolate them from the outside world, so they fail to see cruelty and bad people. Careful, my friend. This protection is a fake one. Because it's impossible for any parent to protect their kids forever. And if the parents have a lot of money and a good financial life, that doesn't mean they should make their kids' life too easy to the point of isolating them from reality, people, and social classes. Because at some point, they'll eventually deal with all of it. We see it in the series, Mizzo, by Samir Ghanem, and in H. Dabur, Ibn Ez, and El Wasia. Then, the kid won't have the psychological mechanisms to help him deal with these givings. And like my colleague Muhammad Tariq says, if you worry for your son, and want to protect him, throw him to the streets. Let life make him a gem. Don't know that sounded like Ahmed Mar, but I feel good. One of the main reasons why Gen Z feels emotional fragility, and oversensitivity or overprotective parents who orbit around them at each and every step. And the teenagers of Gen Z who went to college are struggling to adapt there, especially those who leave their families during college. Because at college and work, things are different. You are now a grown responsible person. And that's hard for some people who were raised by controlling parents who made all decisions for them. As soon as a person of this generation imagines a situation where they are solely responsible for all of its outcomes, they panic, and get worried. And the words that parents use to block their kids' ears to avoid hearing, and use to prohibit playing outside to avoid repeating can easily be heard from someone at work. Here, the kid has to appear steady in all of this. Meaning, you can't be a grown man, or a woman who cries in the bathroom after one problem. Cry in the office. In a survey taken by more than 12,000 employees from all around the world, showed that new employees from Gen Z who have worked for a year or two, remember, those are the ones who spent their final college years in a lockdown due to COVID-19, 91% of them feel extreme anxiety at the workplace, and put a lot of effort to deal with coworkers. This anxiety results in a mental and physical exhaustion all the time. And many of them quit. That's in the first 2 years. What about after being a part of the company's family? Imagine quitting in the first year because you're uncomfortable. And when the manager asks you, "Why did you quit, son?" You'll say, "The job is tiring, and you're a bit toxic, and I feel like in a stadium where Turkey is playing because all the red flags. And honestly, I want to normalize quitting." Meanwhile, on the other side, my friend, teenagers who were raised with parents who gave them a part of their freedom and independence, and helped them make important decisions in their lives, have stronger personalities, and showed a larger ability to blend in with the real world and adapt with people their age, college professors, and bosses. Eliza Flibby, a generation's expert and historian of contemporary values, imagine, my friend. Historian of contemporary values, that's an essay. The contemporary values essay. That lady also works as consultant for large companies around the world. She advises on how to correctly deal with their employees. She describes the workplace as a terrifying place for General Z. The simplest problems they face at work, they deal with like it's a psychological struggle. Even though, it could be perfect working conditions for older generations. Your mine-working grandpa, when he sees you crying on the beanbag because you're sad you can't find creative ideas, will chase after you with an axe. The question here, are the controlling parents who surround their children the only reason for the isolation and fragility that Gen Z feels? Of course not. There are other reasons. Why would I ask? If there weren't other reasons, I wouldn't have. I would have ended the episode. Like we said, Gen Z is the first generation to open their eyes and see internet, smartphones, and social media. And just like that made them good at quickly learning computer skills, they are in fact wizards. It also gave them an ability to discover the world behind their phone screens. Being on social media for this generation made it hard for them to be among a social gathering. Because unlike social media, I can't click, leave group. I can't log out at any time. I can't react, haha, while I'm frowning, angry. I have to laugh out loud, and open my mouth on that corny joke my aunt's husband said. Mushroom went to a party because he's a fungi? That joke is decayed. That joke has rotted. The bottom line is that instead of relying on themselves, or their parents, Gen Z relied on the internet. And life on the internet is easy. It's easy to do certain things that you can't do in real-life situations. Even phone calls that are still regarded as a revolution by humanity, that still impress me how I can speak to my friend in America from Egypt, and how the words reach both of us immediately. Gen Z was born into it that way. What are you on about? Gen Z hates that technology as well. Studies showed that this generation doesn't like receiving calls. Me too, my friend. No generation like them. Why call me? Just text. What if I'm busy playing a game? I'll see the message whenever, and reply whenever. I'll also think before I reply. That's important. To come up with excuses why I replied late. And if it's a voice message, you can speed it up. You can listen to it from the middle, and reply whenever too. Or not. But Gen Z thinks that phone calls are a burden that causes anxiety. The problem is there's a paradox. Do you know what it is? That this generation, like we said, is the loneliest generation. The loneliness that they are the only ones who benefit from, and feel comfortable in. A dilemma to make you sympathize with Gen Z, not attack it. It's a generation that was driven by loneliness to share all personal details on social media forever. In her book, The End of Forgetting, the author Kate Eichhorn says that the real crisis in the digital age is not the disappearance of childhood, but it's the ghost of a childhood that can never be forgotten. In that book, the author says that kids and teenagers who grew up on social media will be denied a very good thing, my friend. Which is forgetting. Forgetting? They said forgetting was a blessing a million years ago, Muhammad Hamaki 2010. Forgetting is a blessing, especially in teenage years, which is one of the toughest period of time for man from all the hormones in the body, and an exhausting mental state. A mustache, leg hair, voice dropping. His self-confidence is more sensitive and shaky. Imagine if the teenager is Gen Z, and every detail of his childhood and teenage years is recorded and posted for everyone to see. Your brain is a real one. It sometimes blocks from you embarrassing situations, tough days, and depressing nights you cried to sleep. But your thumb isn't a real one. Due to social media that this generation is on all day, he take pictures crying, or go live while to hurt himself. The American psychologist Jean Twenge, who specializes in studying every generation, and spotting differences, wrote a book called, iGen. Let me translate. iGen. Why today's super-connected kids are growing up less rebellious, more tolerant, less happy and completely unprepared for adulthood. And what that means for the rest of us. That's not a book name, that's a disrespect. The author thought that this generation, the iGen, which is Gen Z, the one we're talking about, from 1995 to 2012. I think I failed again. I can't be Gen Z anywhere. I'm 1994. One of the important things she focused on in the book, and tried to shed the light on in her studies, is the severe depression that is suffered by this generation. As a result of smartphones and social media. That's why it's not weird to find that most of the memes shared by teenagers are about loneliness, depression, and failed relationships. Let me tell you that the most successful type of episodes on the show are the ones that address that generation, and talk to them about mental health. The most famous memes for this show aren't the ones where we laugh and make jokes and all that. It's the memes about loneliness, depression in man and women, familial relationships, isolation, romantic relationships. I always find myself on TikTok with a black and white filter and a sad song in the back. I also find myself saying things I never said. On Twitter, I say things I never heard of. Sadness is the best gift one can give to himself. I never said that. I'm at home, happy, eating dinner. What's this? Also, a large number of this generation in surveys say that they don't want marriage. Think about it. People who can't handle work, won't handle marriage. In a documentary about teenagers in Japan called, In the documentary, they talk about teenagers and examine their romantic lives. They discovered that many of them prefer having a girlfriend on social media, in the virtual reality, and she doesn't have to be human. He can love an anime. Saying it's better than going to the real world, meet someone, fall in love, and get married. A lot of teenagers are also afraid of the idea of attraction. Thank God I'm not General Z. I was going to be single and in love with a peach. The bottom line is, my dear viewer, I feel confused and I feel very old and harsh on the new generation saying, social media, depression, people are on their phones. The thing is, I'm not criticizing anyone or praising anyone. I'm giving you what people have said in the scientific society. People who study this generation also study others. These are just some of the phenomenons that we noticed in this one. We might have been harsh on them in this episode a little. However, we must not forget that it's a very smart generation. They have the ability to be more productive than other generations. They have the ability to be more forgiving than others. They have the ability to have started working before many others. They have the ability to self-teach anytime, anyway. They can communicate with the entire world. They are flexible and able to change their career, thoughts and beliefs unlike previous generations. So, we want to say on this show that this generation has its pros and cons. What we want to say that this generation is like any other. It has good qualities and bad ones, and it has qualities we think are good, but they're bad, and it has qualities we think are bad, but they're actually good. And it's possible that in some setting decades later, there will be a cultural setting with admirable academics who say, wow. The good old days of Gen Z. The depression and social media of Gen Z. We never saw better days after them. That's it, my friend. Last but not least, don't forget to watch the old episodes and new ones, look at the sources and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Someone might say Abo Mead, you're a helicopter YouTuber. Why, my friend? Because you're always worried about your viewer. True. I can't sleep at night if my viewer is in danger. No, and you keep spoiling your viewer too. You keep telling him, you're strong, great, good, kind, and handsome. And you keep spoiling, cradling, and being gentle with him. Of course, your viewer is spoiled. He can't watch other shows. And know that the world has other YouTubers. That's true, my friend. I'm a helicopter parent, but I didn't know.